Please rise for invocation by Chaplain L'Oreal Moise of Advent Health. Thank you.
God of wisdom and love, thank you for your abundant blessings of life, measure of health to fulfill our callings, and ability to be involved in useful work for the honor and bearing appropriate responsibilities. Bless our agenda to be fruitful for the common good. Grant wisdom and courage to know and to do what is right and good and true. May we speak out when it is time to speak out and listen patiently and receptively when it is time to listen. May we always be guided by the spirit of community, by the spirit of justice, and by the spirit of love. May our leaders not ask first, how do we fix this? But may they ask, what do we need to learn? How might we need to change? And to whom do we need to listen? May our council listen for wisdom to govern amid the conflicting interests and issues of our time, a sense of welfare and true needs of our people, a keen thirst of justice and rightness, confidence in what is good and fitting, the ability to work together in harmony even when there's honest disagreement. Give assurance of your direction that speaks to unity and the betterment of all, protecting the least among us, our children, the elderly, the poor, those who are hungry, those who have no homes, those who are ill in body, mind, and spirit, the strangers amongst us, and those who live on the margins. This we pray in spirit and in love. May it be so. Amen.
Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, Chaplain. Will the clerk call the roll? Here. 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 And gentlemen, if you just do me a favor, all of you make sure your microphones are on and in proximity so everybody can hear you. Good. Starting with special reports, report from Kemper Sports on Cypress Head Golf Course. It's a Bob Duquette sighting.
Hi, Bob Duquette, General Manager of Cypress Head Golf Course. I actually got a report for both the month of May and June. And all great news from the golf course side. Our revenues for the month of May actually finished 57% higher than our budget for the month. Revenues increased due to some incredible golf course conditions, a little bit higher price per round, and some incredible customer service by the Kemper team at Cypress Head. Revenues over year by year were for May was increased by 7%. May is our 8th month in our fiscal season, and overall revenues are ahead by 30% for the current year. Payroll's been slightly higher due to labor hours and wages, and of course, expenses are a little bit higher due to supply chain issues, and of course, the cost of materials have gone up incredible high. Our superintendent, Darren Bakke, we just got back from the golf board meeting. He has continued his agronomic program, and he has brought Cypress Head along with the team at Kemper for being the best golf course for both Flagler and Volusia County right now. During the month of May, his maintenance team performed an aerification on all of the tee boxes and the fairways and roughs. This is designed to help improve the course, the condition, improve the health of the turf itself. Also really important is the combination of wall-to-wall mole cricket insecticides along with a pre-emergent weeds. Two things we don't like at the golf course are weeds and mole crickets. They are both destructive. Our shop sales generated a little over $17,000, and again that continues with golf club sales. And we follow all regular maintenance regarding the cart fleet. In the month of May, we received our brand new cart fleets from EasyGo. They're lithium-ion batteries designed to last well over 5 years, and there's advanced technology, both brakes and ignition, so the carts themselves are safer, lighter, so they help to reduce the wear and tear on the golf course, so a better experience for the customers as well as for the golf course itself. So that's been a great addition. Tournament season in May, we had the Halifax Health Traumatic Loss Tournament, which was well received. And of course, in May, we are working closely with Parks and Recs to host the world famous annual Mayor's Tournament in June. World famous. Course summary reports, we do Google Play, which is 99.3. Our overall rating for the golf course is 9.6. Course rating is 9.4, and our service rating is 9.9, all tops of the line. For the month of June, that was also a good month, but not quite as impressive as the month of May. We finished 13% higher than our projected budget for the month, and the revenues year over year for June was about 12% difference. Month of June is our 9th month in the fiscal year, and so far our revenues are ahead about 29% in terms of revenues. Of course, operating and also labor is pretty much maintained in terms of the a little bit of an increase over budget. Maintenance team in the month of June, one of the reasons why June is a little bit lower in terms of revenue is we aerified our greens. And if you are a golfer, most people will tell you they don't care if you aerify fairways, roughs, or anything else, tee boxes, but once you get to the greens, it's top dressed and sanded. People don't like to necessarily putt on those. They feel it affects their game. So there was a little bit less rounds, but also very valuable because in order to maintain the consistency of the greens through the summer months and into the winter, you need to do aerification. It's just a normal process. Shop sales, we did over 15,000 and continue to offer individual lessons. We also hosted 2 junior summer camps, which was really well received. We help the campers. It's designed to grow the game, offer instructions in all phases of golf. They're brought out chipping, putting, driving, sand play, and of course we bring them out on the golf course and show them etiquette so that as they progress through the golf game, they will become great golfers, but also stewards of the games themselves. Mm-hmm. And of course, the big event in June was the Mayor's Annual Golf Tournament, which I believe was won by maybe a couple of people on the council as well. No? Second place?
No, you were at hangers-on.
Yeah. We were witnesses to some
Oh,
great
I
golf.
see. Okay.
They were on the team, but they were the hangers-on.
Last I checked, I do have a piece of hardware.
Yeah.
Just saying.
There was definitely not a lot of help.
You were reading the putts, I hope.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, so that's how you do it.
Pretty much
That
the
was-
case.
that is that.
But it was well received. It was great because, of course, it raises money for your Parks and Rec department here in Port Orange for everyone. So it's always great to see such an event. Google ratings continue at 99.3, and of course, a couple of things. More importantly, the team at Parks and Rec, Sue Lavallo, Kevin, Peter, have been instrumental in helping us out at the golf course. If they've had any concerns, we try to work with them, but they have been terrific to deal with. So I can't give enough kudos for that entire team over there. And then one last thing, which I'm not sure if you are aware of, I will be stepping down. And September 30th, I've got some family issues that I need to work with my mom up north. So it's been really fun. We're going to be working forward through Kemper Sports to bring you qualified candidates that the Parks and Rec Department will be working through. So this might be my last.
Oh no, we'll find reasons to bring you back up.
I want to come back as a maintenance guy.
Yeah. Right?
Anyways.
No. I like the course the way it is.
Oh, that's okay. Just got that one. Anyways, I'm open for questions.
Council, any questions for Mr. Duquette?
No, I just tell you that the course is in excellent condition, and you guys have done a really fabulous job getting it to where it's at now and being able to maintain it, and which I know it's got its own challenges because the nicer you make the course and the better conditions and maintenance, the more people that want to play it, more wear and tear on the course, and it's hard to find the balance, and you do have to take some of those steps to find that and do some things that might keep a few people away from playing golf so that coming into the fall season and the winter months you'll have a better course.
I should mention too, we just had the 30th anniversary 9 and 9, which was really well received. We had 80 players, 40 on each side for a 9-hole event plus food afterwards, and I actually got to meet Mr. Ward, who was the first mayor, I guess, or one of the mayors that was in charge of the golf course, and plus actually Alan Green was there too, so he was telling stories. Reed, thank you for playing and stuff. It was great, but it was nice to hear some of the stories going back to 30 years ago when it was first built, and they all said there was nothing out there at all. So it was pretty impressive. So it was great.
Yeah.
Well, tip of the cap to you too. I'm sorry I had to back out of playing, but I did enjoy the ride around.
Yeah.
And, 30 years and playing on that course for years, and I've been in a lot of people's backyards in there, and I've helped mow a few looking for my balls. But I'll tell you, it looked better than ever.
Yeah, thank you.
So appreciate your leadership. You've served the city well. I'm sorry to hear of your departure, but prayers are with you and your family.
Family right now.
Absolutely.
Yes, sir. Indeed. Thank you, Bob.
Okay.
Thanks,
Thanks,
Thank
Bob.
you.
Good to see you.
Well, let's see if the Golf Advisory Board backs up what Mr. Duquette said. It's a Lance Green sighting. Item 5, Golf Board Advisory Board report.
Lance Green, Golf Board.
Grandpa Lance.
I won't be telling any stories about 30 years ago. Let Pops handle those, but the main thing what's going to be what's coming forward here in the next couple weeks for you guys is going to be the new contract. The bids went out, bids came back, and I don't know if I'm allowed to announce that Kemper is like the front runner, but Kemper's the front runner, and obviously it's got to do with their work to the course. It's been a long time for the management companies to give the city what we need and to work with Stu and to work with the staff. That they've done a great job of meshing management company to the city, and I commend Bob for a lot of that. He's brought a lot of that work to the front. Obviously, it helps having a great golf course and a great golf course conditions. I mean, it's I don't think I've ever seen the course in better shape in a long time. So with that being said, the numbers are in front of you guys. The numbers are good. The grass is green. We got the planting project done, so that's moving right along. And the golf course and the homeowners association are working together to help maintain the lakes a little bit better. There is a little bit of question about the results of the Mayor's Cup still, and some missing golf balls, Reed, that belong to Susan. But other than that,
I have them.
things are good right now, and the golf course looks great. Questions?
Has the I know we had an issue. I don't know if maybe you or Bob or Susan can answer, but we had an issue on one of the holes there in the resident's backyard where there was a recurring problem. Has that gotten better?
It's funny, I asked that
I know
at
there's been
tonight's
a lot of
meeting,
effort to try to resolve
and
that.
the stats I was given was we put 11,000 players through there, and it happened twice still. So it is still happening.
Okay.
Kemper has gone to great lengths to try and do everything you can do except
Reggie
for
Hunter
putting
seems
an
to be
electric
all over
fence.
it. Yeah.
I mean, we just need the electric fence on there to zap you when it happens, But yeah, it's still not good. It's still not a good thing to happen out there, unfortunately, because the guy lives there,
There's a ton of signage.
has kids.
Yeah,
So
Yeah.
when they tell you straight up, this is the last bathroom before you get to somewhere, and again, we've asked Kemper just to continue to address it at the cash register as well. Okay.
Nice.
All right. Questions?
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks, Lance.
Thanks, Lance. Consent agenda. Anyone have any public comments on the consent agenda? Items 8 through 13. Anyone wish to comment on any of those items? Anyone? Anyone but Robert? Hey, Robert.
Mayor, council members, Robert Reinhagen, 1425 Dexter Drive North, Port Orange. Item 9B has to do with the authorization to update the city's water supply work plan. Water supply is a really important topic, and as a taxpayer and a citizen of the city, I would like to be able to be involved. And this contract requires them to prepare a draft copy and then to meet with the city to review the draft water supply plan. And what I'm asking is that this draft review be a public meeting so that the citizens get an opportunity to understand what the projection is for the future with the water supply. Thank you.
Thanks,
Thank you,
Robert.
Robert. Anyone else? There being none, can I get a approval for the agenda for the evening?
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve the agenda for the evening. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The agenda for the evening is approved. The consent agenda. Can I get a motion on the consent agenda, items 8 through 13?
Move to approve items 8 through 13 on consent.
Second.
We have a proper motion and a second to approve all items on consent, items 8 through 13. Call the roll.
Councilmember Foley.
Yes.
Councilmember Tremont.
Yes.
Councilmember Bastian.
Yes.
Vice Mayor Stiltner.
Yes.
Mayor Burnett.
Yes, 5-0. Consent agenda is approved. Robin, do I have any requests for public participation?
No, sir.
Okay. That brings us to council comments. Let's start at this end.
Looking at this agenda and looking at what we got, I don't need to add any time to the amount of time we're going to be here, so I'm good.
That's an excellent report, Drew. Scott, you got anything for us tonight? Chase?
Well, I'd feel bad for having anything. I was
Well,
just,
actually, they seated a bunch of time for you. So
yeah,
go
I
ahead.
see that. Now, I was just going to again, congratulate Bob on being here so long. I know a lot of people like him, and he's not wrong. The anniversary tournament, which I got to play in, the 9-hole scramble was awesome, which I played with Kat. That's right. Kat was upset because I wouldn't share my score, but we had a good time either way, didn't we? And so, but yeah, I was just going to congratulate him. Sometimes you got to put family first. Life is full of seasons, and there's seasons to do, work, and there's seasons to spend with your family and your friends, and you got to make time for the important things. And so I commend Bob wherever he's gone to for putting his priorities where they matter, and he'll be missed though.
Indeed.
Mm-hmm.
That it for you?
That's it.
Okay. We approved on consent the election of, and in some cases, re-election. The city of Port Orange does not have to have a city election this year. For the first time in almost 30 years, all 3 seats were satisfied at qualifying. So I just wanted to congratulate Scott Stiltner.
Thank you.
4 more years. Look forward to serving with you the next couple of years, because after that I'm term limited, so you'll get me for half of that. Reed Foley, special election, and all of a sudden this comes up real fast, and you're ready to go again, but no opposition. You've been reelected for 4 more years. And Chase, who's looking to do other things, is going to be replaced by Kat Atwood, who was elected unopposed. And I just wanted to congratulate all 3 of you. Looking forward to serving with all 3 of you for the next couple years. Drew and I will be around at least 2 more years, but after that we're both term limited, so we'll be able to sit back and watch and see what the 3
Stay
of you
home on
do.
Tuesday nights. Right?
Yeah.
There's something. There are other things going on Tuesday
yeah,
nights
right.
other than this.
It's probably some Braves games.
Well, there are Braves games. There are also Tortugas games.
That's what I was going to say, or at least Tortuga games.
That's right.
With that, brings us to the public hearing portion of the meeting. The public hearing is now open. Item 15 is second reading of Ordinance 2022-17. Ordinance number 2022-17 is an ordinance of the City of Port Orange, Volusia County, Florida, approving the 7th Amendment to the Master Development Agreement for Crystal Lake Planned Unit Development, providing for the repeal of conflicting ordinances, providing for severability, and providing for an effective date.
Move to approve ordinance number 2022-17.
Second.
We have a motion, proper second. The item is open on the floor for discussion. Second reading. Council comments or questions? There being none, would anyone here care to speak to the item? There being none, council, final comments or questions?
We're good with this one.
Call the roll.
Councilmember Foley.
Yes.
Councilmember Tremont.
Yes.
Councilmember Bastian.
Yes.
Vice Mayor Stiltner.
Yes.
Mayor Burnett.
Yes, 5-0. That brings us to item 16, which is ordinance number 2022-18. Ordinance number 2022-18 is an ordinance of the City of Port Orange, Volusia County, Florida, rezoning property consisting of approximately plus or minus 8.3 acres from multifamily residential to community commercial, authorizing revision of the official zoning atlas and providing for an effective date.
Move to approve ordinance number 2022-18.
I'll second.
Items 16 and 17 are interrelated, but I don't think we need to open them up separately because we're at second reading and we did a lot of hashing out last time. Council, you got any questions or comments on ordinance number 2022-18?
No, sir.
Would anyone here care to speak to the item?
Don't do it, Joey.
You're doing so well.
I was. And I would, Joey Posey, 420 South Nova, attorney for the applicant, and I just wanted to briefly state that, we did have a lot of discussion back and forth at the last hearing, and, what's so exciting about this project is, again, I've got a bunch of very nice elevations that I feel terrible about that I don't get to show you guys for how beautiful this project is. And you have a partner here that wants to do the right thing. So if there's any questions or comments that I can address, I'm happy to walk through everything. I think from our side and our due diligence that if there's still lingering questions about what needs to be resolved and not resolved, I would like to reserve some time here and walk through my PowerPoint if needed. But I know you guys have a busy agenda here, so I don't want to take up too much of your time. And I'm just trying to feel out the room here on what we want to do. And I figured I'd at least mention that.
Okay.
Joey, I'm already a yes on this as before, but if you could just remind for the public, we talk a lot about development, we talk a lot about trying to disperse it around the city, and we also talk about how projects could be unless you make rezonings and do things of that nature, and how we have historically as a council work to decrease the density that's already been allowed. Can you address some of that?
Of course, and that's something that I feel like we didn't get to hit home last time, is that you currently have a multifamily zoning category, which allows for easily up to 100 units. The site plan, I've seen the site plan. I know it exists. I know that there was an interested party. It didn't move forward, but that's the unintended consequence of when 70 years ago, or 1970 when this was established. So what we have the opportunity to do here is, as part of our neighborhood meeting, that was the back and forth. We said, guys, this impacts you, this impacts your neighborhoods. You have a very nice storage facility, a small out parcel out front. Is this what you guys want to see with your neighborhood? And I think the fact that we didn't have anybody coming to talk to us after the meeting or after all of the public hearings it's a resounding yes, that we can live with this. This is something this is good for the neighborhood because it utilizes and services an underserved portion of what's happening in your city, where you have citizens that live in HOAs that need places to store things. That that's good. That's a good version of what it takes to when you're going through a rezoning. That you have a good end user that's going to occupy that space, and you're not left running somebody out and saying, well, now I got to live with what's there. Mm-hmm. And a lot of what I heard the last time was this used to be the old farm. I recognize that. I grew up off of Madeline too. I know and I feel for, this has to change. It's just part of this is, the comp plan says that can't even be there anyway. That farm is a non-conforming use. So, we can't work that way. I've got to work to make this the best I can for the residents. And, part of what we're trying to do is put a very nice storage facility in and trying to find that middle ground where we can say, hey, there's a need we can occupy without impacting folks. And at the same time, taking something off the table where there's new residents where they're feeling the push of already those impacts to their existing services. So that's what I at least wanted to say, and I appreciate Councilman Tremont bringing it up. And if there's any details that you'd like me to go into, I'm happy to. But this is the transparent part of this. I've got a whole presentation I can walk through if you'd like. I just, I'd rather.
You really want to try to talk us out of it?
and that's what I'm trying to avoid. So.
Thank you. Yeah, and for me, I live very close to that. So I admit that I have very mixed emotions about that, because I'm in proximity that past that horse farm at least twice a day, coming and going to work every day. And it's a beautiful, beautiful piece of property. But I also know something's going to change, and you can't make it stay the way it is if the people who own it are ready to move on, and that's just the way it is. I know that there's multi-residential, family residential zone for there, and somebody, and there's already been interest, could buy that, do that, and we'll never have a say. Because if they build it to zoning, it'll never come before us. We won't have any say at all. So to be able to have a project in the area that, instead of adding density, adding homes, adding population, actually serves the people who live in the area and gives them, the people who live in the area, some options. And frankly, that also helps traffic in a way, because people who need those storage facilities don't travel as far to get to them. Not perfect by any means or stretch of the imagination, but for me, I will take this trade-off, knowing what it is and what it could be. That's me. Any other comments, council, before I go to the public?
I'm going to have some for Tim before we vote.
Okay.
Okay.
Anyone here care to speak to the item?
Cat Atwood, 872 Sugar Grove Court. And just since you have the opportunity as it's going in, is there any plan at all to include a sidewalk that comes down Madeline and cuts to Jackson over to Sweet Gum? So we will have a sidewalk there? Yeah. Fabulous, thank you. It's the biggest call I
I need
get.
you to address me, please.
I'm so
Oh,
sorry.
too late.
Mr.
Sorry.
I was speaking to him. That was
Thank
my
you.
only concern. Thank you so much.
Sidewalk, yes.
Anyone else? You gonna try to talk us out of it too?
Last I checked, this made it to second reading.
Thank you.
Not to delay things, but I just wanted to say that we have done everything, and we put in a very detailed presentation at the community meeting, and showing the community how we're screening and buffering this on all sides, and reserving 30% of our site in stormwater and tree preservation on the south side of it next to that neighborhood, and preserving existing vegetation and planting additional vegetation, and then putting a one-story building so that we have like a 10-foot screen wall, and then putting everything inside an enclosed compound, and putting all the units accessed from interior to the 3-story building, and then the whole compound itself screens the Nova Road, the bad neighbor, from the good neighbors. We also moved the thing that's the busiest and creates the most activity, the office, where we lease up and change. We moved it all the way over onto Nova Road, away from the community, so that it doesn't put that anywhere near the community. The thing that I want you to grasp, Mr. Mayor, you've said it, but I want to say it again. Figure 1-9 of the comprehensive plan very specifically provides for community commercial nodes. And this is community commercial. What does that mean? And why is that in the comprehensive plan? It is because all of the roadways that are in that area in both directions are grossly underutilized and don't have a problem. And what you want to do is to, within a couple of miles of where you put a community core, it actually serves the community instead of it generating more residences, which are trips that have to go somewhere else on the wide area network in order to get those services. So when we don't put 100 residential units there and we put services that can serve the community, it utilizes the existing roadway close to it and decreases the traffic impact on the overall road network of the city. The comprehensive plan is right. This is consistent with the comprehensive plan. It's bad for your city and your roadway network if you don't approve it. It's good because it does what it does to the local community, and I'm sorry for taking this time.
No, but before you walk away, I'm going to compliment you. I try to go to the neighborhood meetings, and certainly all of us do when we have something going on that affects the area in which we represent. I was at a neighborhood meeting a year or so ago for another project, and it passed. I voted against it because of what I felt like was a lack of honesty at that neighborhood meeting. And I do appreciate the forwardness and when you're straightforward at a neighborhood meeting, I appreciate that because people are there because they want to hear it. They might not like what they want to hear, but they're there to hear it, and that's their chance, and that's the reason why we require those. And I want to give you credit for that. When people do the exact opposite of that, it's going to be awful hard for me to get behind you, no matter how good your project may or may not be. So I wanted to compliment you on that. I appreciate that.
Thank you.
Sir, before you
Yes.
leave, could you tell our clerk who you are for the record,
I'm
please?
sorry, I'm Philip Hollis, a principal with Flagship Companies Group, and we're the developer at 1190 Business Center Drive, Lake Mary.
You caught robbing the stink eye?
Yeah.
Yeah.
If there really is any concern and any negative vote, please give us a chance to talk you out of it. That's all I'm saying. Okay?
Very good.
All right.
Appreciate you. Anyone else care to speak to the item? Coming back to council, Scott, I know you had a question.
Yeah, I got some questions for Tim. So while in the for the attorney and the developer, there might not have been a lot of opposition. I can assure you there has been a ton of feedback from the community who are pretty upset about this likely project. And a lot of it, Tim, stems from, as you know, a lot of times people want to leave things just the way they are. Yeah. With regard to the comp plan, is there a pathway where something like this could stay just like it is, assuming that there was a willing property owner or a purchaser to continue to utilize it for equestrian purposes? Just because it's in the comp plan, does that prohibit a council, current or future, from amending that or changing that and allowing it to continue to be operated as it is now?
Tim Berman, Community Development. If someone purchased the property, other than the current there, and they want to continue the horse farm, then that could continue as long as basically it's non-conforming use, so that can continue on to whenever someone decided, 50 years from now then. As term of the city basically rezoning or changing some of the future land use, that requires that property owner to sign that authorization, giving us the ability to bring forward an item then. So we would have to talk to that property owner, explain the intent is to change the future land use, and bring that forward. We do have policies in our comp plan that speak to not decreasing the amount of commercial future land use in the city of Port Orange. This has existing commercial future land use. So there are some policies in our comp plan that would technically not align with to change it to like a agricultural preservation then.
And with all plans, there's one-offs, right?
Correct.
And that's something council or the city can work
would
through,
evaluate
right?
that.
Yeah, because there was one of the residents that had contacted me, said that that's what she was told, was that there had to be this change, and I was like, no, not necessarily. And there could be circumstances that could have led to it continuing to be what it is today.
Future land use has been commercial for about 12 years now,
right?
And it's just taken that long before someone decided to develop the property. And like I would indicate, I think over the past year has been the only time we've actually seen interest people in that property then. So for 11 years it sat there as the horse stable then, and then until that property decided to sell then, and that's when the change happens. And we see that a lot, where properties sit as commercial for years and years and years until that property owner is ready to sell and move on, and that's when it seems like change is occurring, but really that change has been set up there, it's just waiting for the right time.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And with regard to the current multifamily residential zoning, I think when you do the math, it comes out to like 94, 96 possible units. But realistically, what we see is by the time property gets developed and they put all of their stormwater and their required parking and all the different things that go into a project, what realistically could be there in a residential type?
I think around like about 60.
So it would probably be closer to that. That's about what I thought would be about 2/3 of that number, roughly, would be relatively accurate. I mean, that's normally what we see in most projects.
In most projects here, when you apply the buffers and in the stormwater then, is roughly about, I would say, basically that's, around 90, usually about 60 units to 65 units then.
Okay.
Really Anybody else?
I'm going to make a comment, but
Go ahead.
I don't have any questions for Tim.
Okay.
So first off, just directly to the developer and to Mr. Posey, I appreciate your approach. Handle it the way you did, the presentation, the meeting, all of that. You guys go about this stuff the right way, and that's awesome. To me, that's the right way of doing business. I don't want to get too far in the project because we only have item 2022-18 open here. And so we're really strictly talking about rezoning. We're not talking about what you're going to do. We're just talking about whether or not we're going to change the zoning. And I want to make sure for a point of order we're not getting onto any other conversations, because that's all we're talking about right now, and that's what we're voting on right now. But I appreciate y'all, the approach you're taking and the way you did it. Do it all right. And to me, that's good in my book. Whether I see the idea you see the same way, either way, it's good in my book, the approach you guys have. And so I want to make sure I told you that I will always appreciate people who come in and do things the right way. So.
Okay. Any other comments or questions of council? There being none, call the roll.
Councilmember Foley,
No.
Councilmember Tremont,
Yes.
Councilmember Bastian,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Stiltner.
No.
Mayor Burnett.
Yes, 3-2. Item 17 is approval of special exception for extra space storage. The recommended motion is to move to approve the special exception to allow a mini warehouse facility to be developed at 950 Madeline Avenue as recommended by the Planning Commission, subject to approval of rezoning case number 22-60000000004. May I have such motion, please?
So, go ahead, Scott.
Motion to approve that. We'll just keep it that short.
I'll second that, Mayor.
We have a motion, proper second. The item's up and on the floor. We went through this last time, and we went through this for the last item as it was related. Comments, questions, council?
I don't know what's that.
There being none, you got off easy.
Yeah.
Would anyone here care to speak to the item? There being none, final comments? Call the roll.
Councilmember Foley,
No.
Councilmember Tremont.
Yes.
Councilmember Bastian,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Stiltner.
No.
Mayor Burnett.
Yes, 3-2. That brings us to second reading of ordinance number 2022-19. Ordinance number 2022-19 is an ordinance of the City of Port Orange, Volusia County, Florida, amending the Land Development Code, Chapters 13 and 17, to allow flexibility in the design layout of a parking lot for uses in light industrial and commercial industrial zoning districts, adding wholesalers and distributors as permitted uses in the light industrial zoning district, providing for repeal of conflicting ordinances, providing for severability, and providing for an effective date.
Move to approve ordinance number 2022-19.
Second?
We have a motion, proper second. The item is open on the floor for discussion. Council, comments or questions?
Second reading. Nothing from me.
Would anyone here care to speak to the item? There being none, back to us, council. Final comments or questions? There being none, call the roll.
Councilmember Foley,
Yes.
Councilmember Tremont.
Yes.
Councilmember Bastian.
Yes.
Vice Mayor Stiltner.
Yes.
Mayor Burnett.
Yes, 5-0. Second reading of ordinance number 2022-20. Here we go. Ordinance number 2022-20 is an ordinance of the City of Port Orange, Volusia County, Florida, amending Chapter 2, Article 6, Division 3, relating to submission of budget and contents thereof, amending Section 2-291, relating to the timing requirements of the budget submission to City Council, amending Sections 2-293 and 2-295, relating to the content requirements of the budget submission to City Council, removing Section 2-296 and 2-297 related to the budget submission to City Council by removing redundant and obsolete sections, amending Section 2-298 by removing redundant and obsolete language, amending Section 2-299 by updating the language related to the budget amendment authority consistent with state law, and providing for repeal of conflicting ordinances, providing for severability, providing for codification, and providing for an effective date.
In an effort of redundancy, I'll repeat the ordinance number in my motion to approve ordinance 2022-20.
I'll second.
We have a motion, proper second. The item is open and on the floor for discussion. Council comments or questions? Second reading? I'm not seeing any. Would anyone here care to speak to the item? John can keep a seat, it looks like. Back to council. Any comments or questions?
I love when a second reading goes the way the second reading should go.
Because you did the hard work on the first reading. There being none, call the roll.
Councilmember Foley.
Yes.
Councilmember Tremont.
Yes.
Councilmember Bastian.
Yes.
Vice Mayor Stiltner.
Yes.
Mayor Burnett.
Yes, 5-0. That closes the public hearing portion of the meeting. Back to regular agenda. Item 20 is debt issuance process presented by Southeastern Investment Securities, LLC. Wayne, what are we doing here?
Mr. John McKinney is going to introduce the speakers for this item. Mayor, Council, good evening. How are y'all doing?
Good, John. How are you?
Good.
Excellent, John.
So as we spoke at the last budget workshop, we were going to have your financial advisor come up this evening and do a presentation on the process for debt issuance. And going back and looking at the history, the city hasn't issued any new debt since 2007. We've only refinanced debt back in 2016. So, there's really, not many, I don't think, other than the mayor, anyone on council since then. So this is something that doesn't happen very often. So I'd like to introduce Toby and Mark. They're going to come up and walk us through the process and the types of debt issuance we possibly could issue.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. Toby Wagner, President, Southeastern Investment Securities, financial advisor to the city. I'm joined by Mark Galvin, who's with Hilltop Securities, which is your underwriter, and another representative, Bill Tyndall, and Peter Dane is your bond counsel. He's the one with the tie back there. And Scott, I took your advice from last time.
All right.
We were here in March not to wear a tie, so. But I do have one if you change your
Okay.
mind.
Throw down tie.
Okay, all right. When we were here in March, we had a workshop on financing alternatives, and it was really sort of the different steps in terms of moving towards financing your capital improvements. And we discussed your existing debt management. We reviewed your outstanding debt and the roll-off and how quickly that debt's been rolling off. We looked at some refunding opportunities which have now gone away due to the increase in rates as a result of the Fed. And so then we looked at some of the examples of future capital improvements. And then we looked at some funding options. And the funding options we were focused on was PAYGO, which you're familiar with, for smaller projects, R&R type projects and so forth, and shorter life expenditures. And then grants, federal and state, is another option that we need to look at carefully. Federal and state loan programs, bank loans, be it a amortizing bank loan or a line of credit, or bond issues, or capital leases. So those are some of the areas that we discussed in March. And then we said the next steps would be to prioritize your capital improvements, which you're coming around to that at this point in time, and then determining what those needs are, and then we'd follow up with a financing plan. We're not here tonight with a financing plan, just to talk about the process, really, from our meeting in March. Since March, we have met several times with your staff to go over your capital needs and understand that, particularly focusing on the next couple years, 22, 23, and 24, as to what those needs are, both in general fund and your enterprise funds, and more specifically in water and sewer, not as much in stormwater, because you've got ARPA for that at this point in time, and I think you're in pretty good shape on that. So, in terms of moving forward from this point, we will come back with a financing plan which will be commensurate sort of with the timing on your rate study, which is you're undergoing right now with Rectalis. And that should be completed sometime, I think, the first part of November, John, something like that. And I think we'll tie in a financing plan maybe before that or right around that time. We'll be guided by your staff on that time. And so we'll be back and present another presentation like we did in March, a PowerPoint presentation, giving you financing alternatives again for each of the specific projects going forward. And then it's really up to you to decide what kind of financing vehicle, if you do want to go with a financing vehicle, to move forward on, or whether you want some of this as PAYGO. And that'll be up to your budget and what you can afford on a PAYGO basis, certainly. So with that, I think that beyond that financing plan, that will not require any action necessarily. We will then develop the necessary paperwork, which is a bond resolution or a loan agreement, if we go with a bank loan, or if we go with an SRF or enterprise fund. We've spent some time talking to Lynn about those, and that's an option. She's presenting her projects so that we could qualify for SRF if that's an option we want to move towards. So we'll sort that out probably in the next couple months and come back to you. And as far as the current projects you have, you've got the guarantee award tonight, construction contract, I think right after this item on the agenda. And John is either going to use existing funds right now, which will reimburse yourself out of a financing in the future if need be. But I don't think you're going to be needing that money probably for 6 months or so, according to your staff. So a lot of the expenditures you have are really about 6 months off. And so when you start looking at where the market is today, really it's about 6 months off that we ought to be looking at the market. We can position things to be ready to move into the market fairly quickly. If it's a bank loan, it takes about 60 days. If it's a bond issue, maybe 90 days or a little bit more. If it's a water and sewer project, that would be a little bit more because we'd have an engineering report as well as a rate study, which are going to be completing in November. So I think all things are lining up so that we can be ready to finance any of your capital improvements probably by the first quarter of next year and put things on hold if we need to. So be glad to answer any questions. Mark's here to talk about the market conditions if you want to have any questions about that.
Well, if we want to ride a seesaw every day.
That's right, which you do every day.
I am in a business where I'm living and dying by what the 10-year Treasury
That's
does
exactly
to
right.
mortgage-backed
But
securities every day, and this was not a good day.
No, not today it wasn't.
No, it was not.
But the last couple of weeks have been good, and now it's back up.
And gave it
again.
all back in one day.
That's right. You're right. So.
But one thing we can say is that deals are getting done on, for the record, Mark Galvin, Hilltop Securities. Both bank loans and bond issues are getting done. While, like I said, it's going to take a little while for you to be able to make decisions as far as timing. That's what your financial advisor is there for, is that lets you know that while it might be a little bit more expensive, I know the market is still active, both the bank and the bonds, you'll be able to get finance. Obviously, the interest rate will probably be higher than it is right now. Hopefully, it won't be any more on the bond side, between maybe 50 to 75. But really, part of that is just the market hoping that inflation is going to be under control and that the Fed can control, and whether or not there's a recession or not. So, but just let you know is that the feeling is that from our perspective, that no matter what, rates are still going to be attractive if you look historical. Obviously not as low as if you did it today or last year.
Money is not near free anymore, but it's still quite cheap.
That's right. Yeah. That was my comment. Thank you.
Now, as far as looking at, I mean, what we're going to have to do, of course, is take a look at what it is that we're, the projects we want to do and when and how much we want to spend. But for me, the scope of whether we do a bank loan or whether we do bond financing comes down to two things. One is the amount of, how much are we borrowing and the amount of time we need to pay back. And it seems like the larger borrowing and the larger time frame usually makes me lean towards bond financing. But obviously we're not there yet, but those are considerations.
And one other consideration you may want to think of is the useful life of the project that you're financing, and not go over that too much. So.
I think the mayor made a good point at some budget meeting over the last 3 months is also what are we using the money for, and who's going to use that project that we're investing in, because that can determine whether it needs to be spread out over the lifetime of the project. If it's a water and sewer project that's going to last 30 to 50 years, then you might want to go out a lot longer than if you're just going to you're going to build something with a shorter lifespan. So that's something you pointed out that I'd never thought of prior to
Which
you
is
saying
why
it.
we might even look at a hybrid, depending on what we're.
Correct.
And Mayor, something to consider, as he said, we'll be bringing back a plan for you at a later date. But as we go through the August 30th budget workshop and the 2 public hearings, when you go and you adopt your 5-year CIP plan, then that's what we will be using as the guide as we're doing our rate study. So all of your rates will be predicated on that 5-year CIP plus operational expenses, so that when we come back, whether it's 6-9 months from now with that financing plan, Toby and Mark will probably sit there and say, John, now's the time that we can also look at potentially issuing the bonded debt for the 23-24 projects, because right now we think it's advantageous for you to do so. So they're going to take all that into consideration when they bring that plan back to you at a later date.
Which is why we hire smart people to help us with this stuff.
Just to summarize, I did want to point out that the intended purpose of bringing this is when we brought John on board, the idea was to make Port Orange's finance department highly respected, leading edge, best practices, traditional, whatever. I don't have the perfect word for it, but we're trying to make sure that what we're doing is the most prudent, efficient way to run a local government. And every time we do anything that may change from what we had been doing in the past, we wanted to make sure we were transparent, explaining it to you and making sure you were comfortable. And so the reason for this tonight, just to continue with this messaging in public, is because the following item is buying a fairly large generator for the water treatment plant and using a slightly different way to get the money to do it. And we wanted to be sure everybody saw the attorney's office was comfortable, purchasing's comfortable, finance is comfortable, your financial experts are. And so as we move forward with other capital projects, which do include some meaningful improvements and upgrades to both of our utility plants, which are very important to do in addition to this building and its air conditioner and structure, that you're comfortable with the financing mechanisms we go forward and the public understands what we're doing, because it is a variation from what we've done in the last 10 years or so. So if you need more information from us, we want to make sure that we're keeping you informed all along the way.
Well, and also, and I just want to throw this out for everybody, when you're looking at a pay-go approach, you're not necessarily, and Reed hit on it a little bit a second ago, not only are you not balancing out the users of the project, you're making the early users pay for people who are going to be using it years out, but you're also tying that money up that we could be using for other priorities, our people, things like that. So there are some advantages to this.
Good.
Toby, most important to me is really trying to grasp and understand the timelines for us to be able to make those decisions and take advantage of whatever opportunities may come our way when they do. And so I appreciate you talking about that a little bit and continue to keep us, because the timeline to me, as I see this, is a critical piece in the whole thing. And then trying to outguess the market is crazy, especially right now, right? It's so unpredictable. But understanding the timeline for all of us, the city staff, and your recommendations to be able to take advantage of these investment, because I look at them as investment opportunities, because this is reinvesting back in our city and our infrastructure, and understanding the return of investment on a lot of these, big decisions and critical components. But that timeline to take advantage is really, really important. So
right, when your staff told us you really don't need the money, you're not going to be writing checks for another 6 or 9 months on some of these projects, we can still get a lot done between now and then, and further the education, I think, which is important. And but we see no issue in terms of being able to come up with a financing vehicle on a timely basis to meet your capital needs, whatever you decide. So between now and the time we come back to you with a financing plan, you will have completed your capital plan and finalized that. That'll be after September, which is when you're doing that. And then you're moving towards your rate study. And as I understand it from Wayne, you are moving towards having an architect look at the building in terms of what this envelope needs, and maybe some engineering work as far as that's concerned. So once we have that information, then we can better understand the general fund expenditures as well.
Council, you got anything else for Toby or Mark? Or John or Wayne?
Let me make one comment. Right after the contract award, you've got an item on the agenda, which is a reimbursement resolution, and Peter can speak to that if you have any questions on that in terms of the process, or maybe Matt's going to go over that process with you. So that all ties into what we're talking about tonight, too.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, gentlemen. That brings us to item 22.
21.
I'm sorry, item 21, you're right. I was wondering why the two parts weren't there for me.
There is a 22 in the number, though.
Item 21A. The recommended motion is to move to award ITB number 22-07 to Chinchor Electric in the amount of $4,357,330. Authorize $50,000 for unforeseen conditions for a total not to exceed the amount of $4,425,330, subject to the approval of reimbursement resolution 22-22. May I have that motion?
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion, proper second. Item 21A is open and on the floor. 21B is related, as it is an A and B item. Of course, that's the adjoining resolution. May I have a motion to approve resolution number 22-22?
Move to approve resolution 22-22.
I'll second.
You know, it'd help if I read the resolution too. A resolution expressing the intent of the City of Port Orange, Florida to issue tax-exempt debt in an aggregate principal amount not exceeding $4,425,330 to reimburse the city for amounts advanced by the city to pay the cost of the Garnsey Water Treatment Plant generator project and providing for an effective date. That was your motion, Scott?
That was it.
And that was your second, Drew?
Yes, sir.
Item 21A and 21B are both open and on the floor for discussion. Wayne, what have you got for us?
Lynn Stevens, your Public Works and Utilities Director, is here if you have questions on the generator project itself. And you heard Peter and Matt could also help with questions on the resolution.
Okay.
Good evening.
Good
Mayor,
evening. Good to
Council.
see you.
Good to see you. Haven't been up here in a while.
I know.
Good to see you.
So the generator at the Garnsey Water Plant is about 20 years old, as well as the motor control center, which is all the breakers that the generator feeds through the entire water plant. The infrastructure there is very old. It's outdated. We're having difficulty getting parts to keep the system operational. It is your only water plant, so it is absolutely critical that we get the generator and the MCC in place as quickly as possible. Toby talked about how long it takes for some of these projects. This project has been in the making for approximately 2 years. It's been in design. So we finally have the design. We've gone out for bid. Yes, it came in much higher than we anticipated. Seems to be the way of the world at this point. We're expecting construction to take about 20 to 24 months. So I'm here for any questions you might have. I know.
Council, questions, comments?
Talk a little bit about what the generator does, how it would be used, what are the, I guess
The why.
The why. This is
So-
a big check, right? So
It is a big
explain
check.
for the residents why this investment is so critical. And
So
how
you
this-
have one water treatment plant. It runs on electricity. When the power goes out, there is no water to pump. There's no power to generate the pumps to move water or make new water. So if power is out for any length of time, then you would not have water to supply the community. That's the criticality. Florida Department of Environmental Protection requires that you have an auxiliary power supply at your water treatment plant. So we are obligated by law to have a generator in place and operational at all times. So we have to have that backup power. Just to give you an idea of the size of a generator here,
Yeah, how big is this bad boy?
yeah, they're trailer sized. I mean,
Yeah.
they're huge. They're not small little generators that you go to Home Depot and buy. If you were to buy one of the small generators at Home Depot, maybe a 1,000-watt generator, this is a 1250 kW, which is 1,250,000 watts of power. So you're talking about over 1,000 of those little portable generators would equate to one of these generators. So, and just to prepare you that we're also working on the replacement of one of the 2 generators at the wastewater plant as well. So that's in design. It's about 90% design complete.
And Lynn, with that generator, when it's utilized, is there any drop off in service, or that generator strong enough that we don't miss a beat in
We don't miss a
distributing
beat. It is designed for full plant design capacity. We are not at our full plant design capacity at this particular point. We're about 50%, 50 to 60% of our capacity. It is a seamless transition. So when the power goes out, the generator comes on, it's a seamless transition.
And any value in the old generator, what happens to it?
So the old generator we are going to leave in place and run through the new MCC as a backup. So you will have 2 generators. The older generator, I think we can get a couple more years maybe, but it's not reliable. It throws a belt on a regular basis, and it takes staff about 6 to 8 hours to replace the belt. So it's not a reliable source of backup power for us. But we did want to have some redundancy. We think it's still got a little bit of life. Worst case scenario is we trailer mount it and we use it at something that's not as critical.
Well, that was going to be my next question. Is at some point can that be rebuilt and reutilized for?
So parts are becoming
more
difficult
time,
to
or-
get.
Yeah,
It's
okay.
it's 20 years old.
Sure.
It's like having a 20-year-old
scrap.
vehicle. It's a diesel engine.
Sure.
We're having a difficult time, which is why both of these generators are coming up for replacement, both the water and the wastewater plant. We're having a terrible time trying to get parts for these generators. So that's the criticality. We can't remove the existing generator to the new generator, and the new MCC is in place. So the thought process was, why pull the old one out? Since you're building new and putting it in, we'll just leave it there and use it while we can, and use the new one as the primary.
Is there any value, to Scott's question, is there any value for reselling the parts to reduce the cost for the new one? Is it worth
Not
it?
that we have found.
Beyond
I mean,
scrap
we could sell it as scrap, like we've done some of our other generators from the fire stations. Some of the other generators that we have replaced recently, we put them out to auction, but it will not make a dent in this particular project. A lot of this project is the motor control center, all the breakers. And those breakers are so antiquated that we have a difficult time just keeping those operational.
What else you got? Reed, you got anything?
Always trust you.
Lynn,
No, I think I'm good.
Drew, so the old one lasted 20-ish years. What is the life expectancy of the new one with the new hardware and everything?
I'm expecting 20 years.
Okay, so
We're going to hold you to that 20 years.
so
Okay.
so we're gonna, and I get it, it's
I might have
necessary,
to come
but
up with a walker at that
4.4 million, well, but it's about 220,000 a year, which is well over $18,000 a month just to have. I mean, I don't think we could probably even rent something for that price, but with a 20-year, I mean, we're not going to be talking about this for a while, but I would imagine in 20 years when that is antiquated, we might be talking about $8, $9, $10 million.
You probably will. So I do want you to understand that this $4.4 million is not simply the generator.
I was getting.
No, I know.
It includes all of the motor control center.
Yeah.
Think of your house and the breaker panel of your house,
Yeah,
and then multiply that by, I'd say at least 1,000 times.
yeah.
And that would be the size of the motor control center and all the breakers and switchgear that go into operating the facility. That switchgear, regardless, needs to be replaced because we can't get breakers anymore for that.
Yeah.
It's kind of like converting your house from the old fuse system to the new breaker systems.
And looking at it, there were 600 plus pages of backup material and documentation on this. So I know it's a huge, are we going to be looking at a similar cost for the wastewater plant, or is that one, the capacity is less, so would that one be a smaller project or in the ballpark?
Or do you even know yet?
I think it's going to be slightly larger because there's a lot more electrical components that go
For
with
the-
that.
for the
The
okay.
wastewater plant actually has 2 generators.
Oh, that's
and
right, yeah.
the one generator only runs the front end of the plant. The second generator runs the back end of the plant.
Okay.
The way it's currently designed and configured, which is inherently a problem because if one of those generators goes out, the other generator might operate, but you can't run the plant.
Yeah.
So the design of the new system is going to be able to cross over. So worst case scenario, one generator would be able to handle half the plant.
Okay. And then,
So it is going to be much more expensive because we are going to redo a lot of the MCCs.
gotcha. And the new generator that we're doing here at Garnsey, that'll have its own, it'll be housed in a separate, but they're building everything, the building, the whole 9 yards?
That's correct.
Okay.
And it'll be located on the same site.
Okay,
Mhm.
very good.
Now, it seems like a lot of money, but when you break it down to each water customer, it's about 65 cents a month per water customer. It's still a good chunk of a water bill, but still.
Oh, yeah.
We're talking about $4.5 million, equaling 65 cents. Just interesting.
Very.
Chase, you have something else?
Yeah, just one quick one. We have our lease and replacement fund, of course. Is there any plan for a generator fund to put a piggy bank in, so in 20 years you have something in the stash to put a down payment on?
So one of the things I did when I started here at Port Orange is I created a capital account that council has approved for a capital R&R. And most recently, after I think Matthew or Irma, we created the 2 generator funds, one on the public works side of the house for all the general fund generators, and then we had one created for the water wastewater plant, because there's about 19 generators at the water and wastewater plant. You have the wells have generators, you have the pump stations, but the biggest ones, of course, are the ones at the treatment plants. And then on the public works side of the house, we've already replaced all of the generators at the fire stations. We're getting ready to do the 2 at the police department. So our next schedule would be Public Works and City Hall would be our next one. So we have created a fund like that. It is a generator replacement fund. We've talked about taking that project and making it individual projects like we've done this particular generator. There's a CIP that you approved a couple years ago for the water plant generator replacement. You approved a CIP project for the wastewater plant generator replacement. So we have created projects. We have them on our CIP. We know the age of the generators. We know when they need to be replaced. We're trying to catch up because we did fall behind on that. But I think we've done a very good job starting with that catch up. Again, it takes 18 to 24 months to do a design for one of these. So it's not like you can just go to the store, buy one and plug it in.
And just, I feel like I know the answer to this already, but FDP requires this, so having, a rental plan in place would not make us compliant, I would imagine.
That's correct.
And that's,
Okay.
It's a large asset for a long life period of time. You're renting something like that, it's going to cost you even more, because then you get somebody else's profit margin involved in it as well. Any other questions for Lynn on items 21A or B? Let's go to the public. Anyone here care to speak to the item?
B, I'll turn over to John.
Coming back to staff. Council, any other questions of staff? There being none, on item 21A, call the roll.
Councilmember Foley?
Yes.
Councilmember Tremont?
Yes.
Councilmember Baskin?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Stelter?
Yes.
Mayor Burnett?
Yes. On item 21B, the resolution accompanying it, call the roll.
Councilmember Foley?
Yes.
Councilmember Tremont?
Yes.
Councilmember Baskin?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Stelter?
Yes.
Mayor Burnett?
Yes, 5-0. Before we get to item 22, let's take an 8-minute recess, and we will be back in 8 minutes. And we are back. That brings us to item 22, setting the maximum operating millage rate for fiscal year 2022-2023. Appreciate the reading on that one. We will have to, we're all back? Great.
You want to hand it?
Wayne, tell us what our objective is with this, and set the tone and set
Sure.
John
The
up.
finance director is going to be up here to take you through that. We also have hard copy versions. We had provided a chart of millage rate options that Robin's got. I think she passed them out, or we'll pass them out to you so you can have one you're looking at while it's also on screen.
Thank you.
So John, you can come and put it on the screen.
Is this the part where I get total sticker shock?
Homeschooling education.
No, sir.
Well, I don't know about that.
I won't kid around about this. No, sorry.
Okay, we have that up there too.
Thank you.
You want to take a look at the chart?
Yes, sir. I was just waiting for the.
Then you go ahead.
Okay. Mayor, Council, this evening we're here to discuss the maximum millage, which is required as part of the TRIM Truth and Millage Notice. So this is the last possible day that we can approve this, as this has to be submitted to the property appraiser no later than 5 p.m. tomorrow afternoon. So this past Monday, we had our final budget workshop where we went over the operating, capital, and CIP programs for the city. And the budget that I presented to you for the general fund was balanced at 4.92 mils. So that represents a 10.42% increase over the rollback millage rate, which is currently 4.557. So this evening, you know, as I stated, the current operating millage rate is 4.9072 per $1,000 of assessed taxable value. The current year's total taxable value for operating purposes is $4,513,302,821 as certified by the Volusia County Property Appraiser. The current year's rollback millage rate is 4.4557 per 1,000 of assessed value. As I stated, the current year millage rate as an increase over rollback is the 10.13% increase. So as stated, at the 4.92, which is above the current millage rate, that presents a balanced budget and would bring to the general fund an additional $1,990,750 to the general fund. So typically, as we go through the maximum millage, you don't typically set the maximum millage at the rate that the general fund is balanced at. You typically will go above that millage rate, because between now and your first and second public hearings, many things could happen. We could have a hurricane, we could have a blowout of a road, etc., that would require us to raise additional taxes for whatever purpose. If you go back and look historically over the last 10 years, the city has only twice set the adopted millage at the maximum millage. 8 of the last 10 years, we've always come back and obviously adopted a millage rate less than the maximum millage. It's not typical that you would set it at the millage rate that's necessary to balance the budget. You always go above. Doesn't mean you can't. I'm just advising you that you might want to consider, in case anything happens between now and September 21st, that you might set it. If you were to set it at a rate below the 4.92, which is the staff millage that we've balanced the budget, then for some reason the first public hearing or the second public hearing there was a necessity to increase the millage rate above the maximum, you would have to send a letter to every parcel in the city to make them notice that there's a public hearing to discuss a millage rate higher than the maximum millage. You can do it, cities do it. It can be very expensive when you consider, postage and everything else. So that's just my recommendation. I'm not asking you to set a millage rate at 5 mils and that's what we're going to build the budget at. It's just giving you that little bit of leeway. What you see on the screen before you, you can see that my guide down here, yep, I guess I am controlling it. If we look down here, I have 3 highlights. The workshop millage, which was the 4.92, the current millage, which is the 4.9072, and the rollback millage, which is the 4.4557. I've put in here for you, if you look at all the various millage rates that you could possibly do, I did inform you in this column right here what the percentage is over rollback, what that would bring in ad valorem proceeds, what we would budget at 95%, which is required by law. And then this column right here would show you what the additional revenue over rollback would be. And then this column right here is based off a taxable value of $200,000 less the $50,000 homestead exemption at 95%, assuming they pay early, so they get the 5% deduction. And then this right here, this column, represents what the total tax increase would be to that individual for a year. And then the final column is what that would be based on monthly. So I look at this, sir?
In dollars.
In dollars, absolutely. So, so I just kind of look.
Based on $200,000 home.
Yes, sir. So I look at this column right here. That equates to, maybe, a Starbucks once a month decrease. So, that's the only way I can kind of put it into something reasonable.
Yeah. We also got to factor in save our homes. Doesn't necessarily mean just because you'd be paying, say $57.76 more in that equation doesn't mean that's what's actually going to happen to you.
Correct.
My concern too is that yes, our residents, and we do have the highest percentage of residences of all the cities in the county that have our homestead exemptions. I'm very happy for that. But what that also means is that whatever we do, we really sock it to our businesses to make up for what is not exempted to get the same dollars. It is not an equivalent or balanced process. It is what it is. This is what it is. But just know that any tax increase, this is what we're doing to our businesses. So when I say we want to take a very business front, we've got to take care of our businesses as well, because they are paying a lion's share of the taxes in this city. Now for that rant.
So the other thing that we have to complete, Mayor, as we go through is you help me to set the maximum millage that I will then report to not only the State of Florida Department of Revenue, but also the property appraiser. I just want to make sure that we also point out the 2 public hearing dates, which are tentatively scheduled for Wednesday, September the 7th at 5:30 and Wednesday, September the 21st at 5:30. So those are the 2 dates that I want to make sure. And it's not so much required for this evening, but I just, again, as we stated last week, we do have a general obligation ad valorem, and that is in order to pay for the debt service on that requires a millage rate of 0.21, and that will generate citywide $900,000.
Okay. And that's about debt service.
Yes, sir.
Continued debt service. All right. Well, we had a very lengthy conversation at workshop last week, in which 4.92 was presented. Wayne, that 492 talked about where we would be in maintaining service levels, meeting our obligations, factoring in increases that have been promised, trying to take care of personnel, trying to take care of increased insurance costs, increased fuel costs. And I'm trying to summarize a 2-hour workshop in a short period of time there. I know that we've also talked about, you and I have met, I'm sure that you've talked to others of us up here. I know 9 of the last 10 years at whatever we've set this number at, we've come in lower. So wherever we're at tonight, I think this council, whatever we settle on is not where we want, the work doesn't end tonight. And I know that you've heard from that, me individually, but I want to say that publicly, that pencils have to stay sharpened and we need to keep working at it, no matter what it is, that how high or how low we go tonight. Keep working at it. Council, thoughts and conversation? Suggestions? Where do we want to be?
Well, first off, I was not here for the workshop. I had a family issue that needed attention, and so I apologize for not being here, but I watched the video twice. And so I'm kind of familiar with how it went and everything. And it's never pleasant to look at something. I know legally we have to show that rollback number, but we can't even be talking or entertaining anything close to that because the city would handcuff the city's hands, and we wouldn't be
great if everything cost the same as it did last year.
There's no way we could even come close to meeting our obligations. So anything that low, I know we're not at rollback. We haven't been in a long time. Everything is good. We just approved the $4.4 million generator, and so I'm comfortable at the recommended millage rate with a balanced budget, knowing that this is the max. I don't expect it to come in at that, but I think we should allow some flexibility if there is. Anything can happen between now and September 7th and September 21st. And so I'd like to see some 4.92, knowing it's only the max, and they can go back to work and chip away from there.
Okay. Let's go to this end. Reed, what are your thoughts?
Well, as I understand from meeting with Wayne and everything, the concern, a lot of it lies on the insurance estimates, right, John? Is that we have a number we think is going to come in, but we don't have that exact number, and that would be the one outlier that could really create a problem in terms of the millage rate.
That's correct. Just this afternoon, we preliminary have budgeted a 10% increase for healthcare cost. Our first round came in at 9.3% increase, so it's a little bit of a reduction. But when we ran the numbers,
20%
that's on property casualty.
Right.
This is only on healthcare.
Yeah.
So if we look at the 9.3, if I was to look at 10% to 7.5%, that was a $100,000 decrease to the general fund. So going from 10 to 9.3, it's not very much. And honestly, I haven't ran the numbers because that came in late today, so I haven't been able to run it. So we're trying. Mayor, you told us to tighten the belt. We're working on it. Your budget staff and I and the city manager, we're looking at everything, so we're trying.
I don't know if you want to address the fuel volatility as well. The mayor said this affects the general fund departments, but fire and police parks, they use a lot of fuel in their operations, and any more time we can get to determine where it's coming down. But if we budget at a low number and it goes back up over the winter, we'll have an issue later in the year. So just the conservative approach that John was mentioning to you allows us a little bit more time to see where the market goes on fuel, because there is a fairly large impact out of the general fund.
It's crazy to me, and nothing to do with nothing except that I'm trying to find a way based on inflation. It's different depending on what you're purchasing, of course. We're not purchasing a grocery basket here. We're talking about wages is 2/3 of it. The things that we're trying to purchase here with this money, and I'm sweating. How do I get under a 10%? How do I get under a 10% tax increase? And I'm sweating that. That is a ridiculous jump. And of course, our hands are tied because things cost what they cost. And there are some things that we can decide on. There's some things that we can't. We can decide how to take care of our people, but we can't decide how much fuel costs. So, and it's just amazing to me. There are some things that were mandated to us by the voters. $15 an hour minimum wage is something that we're heading towards. Voters have spoken. Of course, I still haven't spoken to an individual yet that wants to see their taxes raised because of it, but, you know, that was one of the impacts. That was part of the ballot language.
And
John.
it said it in there.
Sorry.
I'm sorry, Rick.
No, just kind of staying on the gas topic for just a second. Obviously, that's another pretty big number. Is that just, how do you come up with that calculation? Just, and this probably was a better question to ask ahead of time. Is there just, we're guessing $3.50 a gallon times X amount of gallons we typically go through, or what's the thought process there?
So we know exactly how, for the last 12 months, how much unleaded gallons of unleaded and diesel. We look at what the price has been the last couple of months because that's usually our guide. I mean, this past weekend, first time unleaded's been under $4 a gallon in how long?
Yeah.
So you got to consider that for the last 4 months, our fuel has been at the highest level since '09, I think.
Yes.
You know, so that right there is a third of our fiscal year, 4 months. So, you know, when it comes to statistics, 3 months for me, you know, in planning out a year is a good sample. So, I mean, I can tell you, you know, we don't stop in finance budget specifically on what to do on the budget until right before final hearing where you're setting that final millage and budget. I will come up to the city manager and let him know up until the last minute, Mr. CM, I can go to this millage rate and I'm comfortable with it. And that will have been vetted by your entire budget team when we do that.
Okay. What else you got?
I'm good for now.
Chase, what do you got?
Well, you know, this always brings the passion out of everybody in here, but I always enjoy this time, you know, because we do it professionally, respectfully. You know, my position continues to, you know, I don't change on my feelings on where we're at this point, but I do understand the times that we're in. You know, it's true we've gone lower than our max the last few years, but not very much lower. Fact is, if we're looking at needing $2 million every single year just to turn the page on our budget, it's just not sustainable. So I've been meeting with Wayne. I'm gonna continue to meet with him a whole bunch. I know we've got a long way to go. You know, for me, my starting point is right at about a 4.75. That's where I'm not willing to go any higher for that, and that's just a starting point for me. You know, which is higher than I've ever gone to at this point, because I do recognize where we're at. You know, the last 2 years, again, I'll say it as I've been saying, we've experienced the greatest economic crisis in almost a century. Certainly none of us in our lifetime experienced anything like that. Even with that, even with businesses shutting down, people being laid off, careers being ended, jobs being lost, salaries being cut, all that stuff going on, we've still raised taxes the last 2 years, almost 10% both years. And I've been a consistent no vote on these. And I don't believe it's pork spending. You know, we have a very lean budget here. I get that. My feeling is, and it's hard to wrestle with that, that by approving more raising this year, it feels like I'm retroactively approving the previous 2 years, which I was staunchly opposed. And as a taxpayer, first and foremost, I want a break. But I do understand that we do have bills to pay. I get that. And I recognize, and I think most people out there are wise enough to know that we have one of the leanest budgets in this county, and I don't take that lightly. I don't expect a rollback by any means. I'm not even asking for that, because I know our budget, I know our needs, but I also know that, you know, my family has needs every month, as do all of yours. I've knocked on over 7,000 doors over the past few months. I've spoken to a lot of people, and there's a few people that are pretty well off. A lot of people that aren't well off, and those are the people that I choose to give my voice to year in and year out as best as I can, while still meeting the needs and expectations of the city. It's never easy to say yes, never easy to say no, regardless where your position is. Again, if it's not easy to tell professionals no on the things that they're asking that they feel needed to do their jobs to serve the city at the level that is expected of them. It's also not easy to look people in the eye that just lost their careers and are living on tough times month in and month out, that, hey, I'm taking more of your money when they're begging me not to. So it's really a no-win situation. But that's where I'm at, and that's the direction I've been chatting with Wayne about, Mayor.
Scott?
Wayne, currently, what's the CPI 991? And what number are we using when we're talking about budgeting fuel? What's the number we're using per gallon currently? And what did we use last? Do we know what we used last year? Sorry, John, didn't mean to put you on the spot.
I would have to get with Fleet on that, sir, as that information came from them based on their current fuel prices and the unleaded and diesel gallons.
Okay. And if you get that back to us, I want to know what did we use? What was the number we used to budget last year versus what number are we using?
I'd have to get with the Public Works manager
okay,
on
that's
it.
fine.
I'll email out that tomorrow.
Yeah, perfect.
Yeah, I would like
That's
to see
fine.
that too.
Perfect.
Thank
you. As far as like what can happen between setting a max millage and the final, and I know we're less than 60 days out here on turning the page to a new budget. It is important to keep in mind that we have a very healthy reserve funds, and that, interestingly enough, from hearing what some of the other cities, I'm actually kind of surprised other cities aren't carrying as healthy reserve funds as we are. So that's kudos to being very conservative for our residents in the event something like that, like John was talking about earlier, were to happen. Dwayne, do we know where we're at projected wise on carryover funds from this year's current budget?
John, you might as well just stay up here.
John, grab a chair.
Sit in the corner over there.
And I know it's tough because we're not there yet, but.
Yes, sir. So this evening you passed the budget amendment that allowed for us to clean up prior year projects. So as Linda and I have spoken, and I've told the city manager, by Friday of this week we'll have all that inputted and all the transfers completed, and we'll be able to provide that information.
We don't have any idea at all? I mean,
So I can tell you that it's roughly 31%.
okay. To carry over.
Oh, I'm sorry. Our current fund balance is 31%. So I know the police department have given me a little bit of carry forward. So I'm trying to get July closed.
Okay.
So July would be, 10 months out of the year. So that gives me a really good number once I close out the month to give out, plus do all the adjustments to give that number out.
Okay.
So no dollar amount currently that we haven't.
I've been waiting for July to close so that we can finalize that, plus the budget amendment, and that gives me my best number that we will have had so far since we last spoke.
Okay.
I think that's all I got for you, John. Okay. I wouldn't go, wait, Drew's
For
still
now,
going.
I would. Yeah, I was gonna say.
Oh, I started.
Yeah.
I wouldn't let him sit. He's the
Right.
one asking for the big tax increase here.
Right.
Make him stand the whole time.
I mean, I echo
Your
the same.
budget.
Okay, I'll take that.
Okay.
I echo the same comments and concerns that everybody up here has, is trying to find the balance of how do we maintain a desired level of service and commitment to the residents, at the same time maintaining affordability and getting there, especially, and this may be probably one of the most challenging budgets that I've been a part of in terms of watching what's going on environmentally in our economy, and trying to project and outthink what's going to happen and how much things are going to cost and how radical that's all been. And it always seems like there's a huge delay between an event and then the impact, when you try to forecast that out. So pretty challenging time for sure. I'm probably more in the starting out at about a 4.85. That's about where I'm at. I'm definitely not in the double digits. I'm not interested in increasing the tax rate at all. So we're gonna have to figure out how to get there. That's all there is to it.
Yeah, me personally, I was looking at 494 now because it's under that 10% barrier, and we're already cutting $86,000 from what we did last week. And from that, as we get into more certainty and figuring out what things are going to cost or not cost, I tell you what, coming off of what was proposed, we can go look for cuts and we can trim around the edges and trim around the margins, and we can find some dollars, and we can make. And I know that with the hard work and rolled up our sleeves, we can take some dollars off of that 10.42% that was proposed. But we also have to look at reality. We're talking about our general fund. 2/3 of that general fund is people. You know, what we're taking off of, you know, what we're talking about there is taking dollars off of things we do or not do. If we want to seriously cut and get further down this chart, that's going to impact people. Either you're paying them less or you're cutting jobs. That's 2/3 of our, let's face it, 2/3 of our budget is people. That's the reality of it. Me personally, I'm not comfortable with that. If economic times got much worse moving forward, and next year maybe we have to have a different conversation on behalf of the taxpayers. But at the same time, we have to be there for them, and I'm not comfortable with talking about taking people away. Right now, we need that we always have needed them, but what do we need them for? Do we need them for Parks and Rec? Do we need them for police and fire? I think that I assess the needs of different things differently. You know, even police and fire, because they do different things, but they're both essential. But at the end of the day, if we really want to cut this budget the way we're talking about, that's what we're talking about. I'm not comfortable with that. That's me. Before we continue on with the conversation, I want to give a chance for the public to weigh in. Would anyone here care to speak to the item? Anybody other than Andy? Come on up, Andy. In the microphone, you got to do that in the microphone.
Oh, okay. Andy Baldwin, South Daytona, 2020 Mike Street. Good evening, Mayor. Good evening, Council. Good evening, City Manager. And I'm going to throw some love to Matt Jones tonight, too. Good evening to you all. Thanks for the opportunity to speak. I'm here tonight to ask for flexibility. Thank you for that word that you used earlier, because that's what we need to be here. I'm asking you to make an investment in your number one asset, and that is your employees. I don't think we can any longer lag behind in industry standards. I don't think we can lag behind in the $15 an hour. I know you got a few years onto that, but we're getting behind. We're behind other cities. We need to do something about this. Some things that I see within the realm of the employment here is we have, I saw it today, a USO job in utilities that has been open since.
You get a call from another planet,
folks.
Star Trek
It's gonna be
calling?
a scary story.
Yeah, it is. Sorry about that. My apologies. I had that turned down. Hey, at least we can all laugh and have fun. But there's a problem in that little department. Right now, I think there's 4 or 5 guys, and there's supposed to be 9. These guys are supposed to only have to be on call maybe once every 2 months, and it's turning out that these people have to be on call every other week, which puts a strain on their lives, their family lives. And we ask for flexibility there. We need help getting these jobs up to where they're filled so that we can take care of this. Mechanics in our fleet services, there's struggling going on there right now. A little over 14 months ago, they had a gentleman that worked for the city passed away. His job has not been filled yet. We lost another mechanic just a couple weeks ago, and we're fixing to lose another one. The institutional knowledge, guys, that we're losing is huge, and we need to do something about it. One other little thing I want to tell you, I think you guys would be astounded to find out how many of your employees here have second jobs, or maybe their spouse has a second job. And that weighs in on, again, the family. And to me, that's important, and I think that's important to you guys too. So I'm just asking for your flexibility. I'm asking for your help. We are asking for your help. We need your help to get to where we need to be. Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Andy.
Sorry about the phone call.
That was great.
Hey.
It was my wife from Alaska. She's up there.
Better go out there and answer
He,
that.
better call her back.
he got the phone call in inside the 3 minutes though, so he was okay.
Yeah.
Good.
Thanks,
Who
guys.
else?
Appreciate it.
Hello, my name is Corey Westbury Miller, citizen of Port Orange, worker of Port Orange, specifically utilities, wastewater. I'm going to jump on and add on to just what Andy is speaking of and what you all have also, I believe, portrayed when you speak about wanting to hold a quality of service for your citizens and wanting to make sure that citizens are able to live comfortably, keep up their homes, afford food, water, housing, all that. It all comes back to your employees as well, because like Andy said, there's many employees that work a second job. There's many employees that cannot even afford to live in Port Orange, the place that they're trying to make the best place possible to live. And if we don't pay these individuals and just catch up to the surrounding cities and pay them a fair, competitive wage, you are going to lose them. You are already losing them en masse. Come October, this October, if we don't see at least a promise of a change, things aren't going to get done. Toilets aren't going to be able to be flushed. Water's not going to be drinkable. You're going to see more and more and more potholes in the city that cannot get repaired by somebody other than contractors, which cost you, us, everyone, a whole lot more money than just paying your employees fair, competitive wages. We are the last city in the surrounding area to reach the $15 minimum wage. We have always trailed behind all the cities in the area, and we have been known to be a revolving door of our employees. When are we going to wake up and give our citizens the quality of service that they're paying for? Because we don't pay our employees, they're not going to get any service anymore. Thank you.
Thank you, Corey. Thanks, Corey. Who else? Come on, Rick.
I know you haven't heard from me in a while, but Rick Erlone, I live in Port Orange. I work here at the fire department. I think you all know that. That's not me. I got the same ring. It's making me nervous.
Answer the phone, Andy.
He needs to call her back.
I'll take my hat off. I was trying to hide all my gray hair, but I'll try to be respectful. I'm going to reiterate quickly, because I don't want to waste a lot of time, but and I know you've heard it all before. Everything that these guys are saying, and I was about to get up here and say, I didn't hear, the comments going around, and I don't usually hear you guys speak of the human aspect to it, and then I was happy to hear the mayor bring that up. So I appreciate that, and I don't know if it was, well, at first I didn't know if it was understanding or malice, but it was, obviously he's concerned also about the workers, and I just want to say that all the same things we see all the time, and if you don't allow, I took the numbers down now, but just knowing that even 4.92 that would just pay the bills that we're already obligated to, and we're sitting here as everybody else is looking for improvements. We've been behind. We're behind other cities. Look at fire contracts. I'll speak to fire. This is what I know. Everybody's getting their improvements and have been over the past couple of years, and we're just falling farther and farther behind. So same thing. We're going to lose people. We can't hire people, and it's not good. I think your best. I was going to say the best asset is a highly motivated workforce, and I mean, whether it's a city or a corporation, or whatever you're running, a small business, anything, and we're not going to have that. It's really tough to stay motivated, and we speak about how expensive, and you all speak about how expensive everything is, but understand that it's expensive for us too, and I hate to see year after year we kind of talk about fuel's going up, and you gotta account for fuel, you gotta account for mowing contracts. I hear that all the time. You gotta account for parts or whatever, and replacing things. I'm sorry. I'll make it quick. But we never hear about it seems to stop at, hey, wait a minute, the workers need to meet all these increased expenses too.
Thanks,
so,
Rick.
I'm sorry.
Nope, you're good.
Thank
Appreciate you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Rick.
Appreciate it.
Who else wants to speak?
Good evening, Mayor, members of council. Thank you for the opportunity to speak. Dave Antoff, Raintree Drive, 16-plus year employee with the city. I'm asking you to set a millage rate that will allow you to continue what you have started, and that is an investment in your employees. The other employees have deservedly got what they need, and they need more. It's time for this other group to be brought up to that same standard. These people, their jobs, although may not be as essential as police and fire, but they do the backup to them. Fleet, water, special events for Parks and Rec. These are people in front of citizens that if they're not happy, if they can communicate to other citizens, that's what they'll do. This needs to be brought to a standard. When I started here, we would recommend people to come to work here. And we would ask our friends, yes, apply, they got openings here, they got openings here. That doesn't happen anymore. The institutional knowledge that's walking out this door at this very moment, not even at 6 months from now, and what's happened in the past is going to definitely take years to replace. And the city needs to come up and fix it right. Thank you.
Thanks,
Thanks,
Dave.
Dave. Who else? Last bite at the apple, anybody? Okay. Council, as we come back to us, first of all, as we continue in our conversation, I just want to caution everybody. Matt's probably going to would probably do it if I didn't, to make sure that we don't talk specifically about what our feelings. Well, our feelings are okay, but I just want to be careful we don't hit specifics while we're in negotiations up here, because we can't negotiate from the dais, because that really doesn't do any. We want to do the right thing by these people, but I just want to caution everybody about to measure your comments and everything, so that we can do right by them by not negotiating from the dais, but rather do it where we're supposed to do it, and put our bang for the buck where it belongs. Second, I still need to entertain a motion. I'm recommending the 490 myself right now, but at whatever point you guys are ready, before we get into final comments, I do need a motion on the floor of some sort.
Mayor, I'd like to, after listening to them and taking this all in, I'm going to stand strong, and I would like to recommend our max millage rate be set at 4.920.
Okay. I still need the rest of the motion.
You need a second.
Which, no.
there's a-
In that motion, I also need you to...
The rollback rate.
No, well, no, that, we're just saying the max millage. We don't need that. What I'm
Yeah.
looking for is to make sure that we're establishing our public hearing dates of September 7th and September 21st at 5:30 p.m. as part of your motion.
Add that to it, and that's where I'm at.
So
September 7th, September 21st.
And your max millage rate you're motioning for?
4.920.
4.920. The motion on the floor to approve a max millage rate of 4.920 and set public hearing dates on Wednesday, September 7th and Wednesday, September 21st, both at 5:30 p.m. That's the motion on the floor. Do I have a second?
I'll second it just for the sake of voting.
You can, or not second it and
No, I'll
vote.
second it.
Okay. We have a
No,
motion and a proper
this is the
second.
max. Only the
The
max.
item is
Place forward
open.
for a
Council comments. There being none. On the motion of 4.92 and setting the dates, call the roll.
Councilmember Foley,
No.
Councilmember Tremont,
No.
Councilmember Bastian,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Stiltner.
No.
Mayor Burnett.
No. I will entertain another motion.
Mayor, I'll make a motion that we set the, let me try to look at your, approve a max millage rate for the fiscal year 22-23 at 4.875 with a public hearing dates to be held on Wednesday, September 7th, 2022 and Wednesday, September 21st, 2022, beginning at 5:30 p.m. Did I get all that in there?
I think you nailed it. We have a motion on the floor to set the max millage rate at 4.875, which is 9.41% over rollback. That's informational. Setting the public hearing dates at Wednesday, September 7th and Wednesday, September 21st, 5:30 p.m. Do I have a second on this motion?
I'll once again second it.
We have a motion. We have a second at 4.875. Comments, council?
I'm just not going to support it because I think it's too low of a starting point.
Well, ship may have sailed for you, but I get you. There may be no vote, it's just like anything. There may be no votes and yes votes on anything for different reasons. Any other comments? There being none, call the roll.
Councilmember Foley,
No.
Councilmember Tremont,
No.
Councilmember Bastian,
No, it's too low.
Vice Mayor Stiltner.
Yes.
Mayor Burnett.
Yes. Motion fails 3-2.
I'd like to make a, can we start over? Are we there?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. I'd like to motion that we set our max millage rate at our current rate, which is 4.9072, and set the hearings for September 7th, 2022 at 5:30, as well as September 21st, 2022 at 5:30.
Okay, I have a motion for 4.9072 with the hearing dates as stated. May I have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Comments, council? There being none, call the
Good
roll.
there.
Councilmember Foley,
No.
Councilmember Tremont,
No.
Councilmember Bastian,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Stiltner.
No.
Mayor Burnett.
Yes. Motion fails 3-2. I'm still recommending 4.90, but I can't make a motion, and I ain't passing the gavel to any of you because that's too dangerous.
All right, Mayor, I'll help you out. I'd like to make a motion that we set the max millage rate at 4.90, and we set our hearings September 7th, 2022 at 5:30, as well as September 21st, 2022 at 5:30 p.m.
We have a motion and a
Already got it.
a second.
There you go.
4.90 with the hearing dates as stated. Council comments. This is us making the sausage right now. There being none, call the roll.
Councilmember Foley,
No.
Councilmember Tremont,
No.
Councilmember Bastian,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Stiltner.
No.
Mayor Burnett.
Yes. Motion fails 3-2.
Guys.
So we're gonna need one.
You gotta be kidding me.
You guys want to make a motion down there?
Make a motion for 4.75 with those dates that were recommended earlier. Is that acceptable?
You want the script?
Where's it at?
Move to approve a maximum millage rate of
4.75.
for fiscal year.
Set the public hearing dates to be held on Wednesday, September 7th, 2022, Wednesday, September 21st, 2022, beginning at 5:30.
Second.
We have a motion, proper second, and it's open on the floor for discussion.
Mayor, I mean, I don't want to sound disrespectful up here or anything, but
Well, you're cutting $700,000 from what
we-
was presented last week. How many people do you want to get rid of?
yeah, none. And I'm
And I'm
just
not
gonna,
suggesting getting rid of anybody with that.
at
And what do you want to get rid
4.75,
of?
That's to be discussed during our budgets
Chase,
and my
at-
meetings here, but to suggest that I'm making this motion in order to get rid of somebody is disingenuous.
at 4.75, we can't turn the page. We're gonna handcuff Wayne, we're gonna handcuff John, and every single employee in here at that rate. To start there, make that the max millage rate, we're gonna hurt people at that. And I can't support 4.75. I think it's, in my opinion, it's irresponsible to do that to our employees.
I reject that premise.
You can reject it all you want. It's my thought. So you can reject it all you want, but I'm telling you, we're doing them a disservice.
I agree. That's fine. You can suggest that as your opinion.
Okay. Have you talked to Wayne about how to cut $800,000?
If you want to vote no, you can vote no.
I'm just asking a question, because that's what that's what you're recommending.
And that's my answer. It can be voted down.
Okay.
You guys asked for a motion on this side of the table. I gave you guys a motion on this side of the table.
Okay. And I'm asking a question. Wayne, what would cutting $800,000 from the budget look like, from the proposed budget?
You know what? I
How would we
withdraw
get
my
there?
motion.
How would we get to cut $800,000, Wayne?
I don't know that I can tell you specifically. We would have to be less conservative in a lot of the things that you've talked about.
Yeah.
There would probably be existing positions not filled, but I couldn't specifically say tonight where that would come from. We don't have it.
I withdraw my motion.
Motion's withdrawn. I'm looking for another motion.
Mayor, I want to say something here.
Yeah, go ahead.
This is really an interesting economic environment we're in. We're dealing with inflation at all-time highs. We need to make sure that everyone knows how much we appreciate them who work on our staff. We just were presented something not that long ago, like you said, that was, quite a bit above in terms of dollars over where we were. We also have to look the public and taxpayers in the eye, specifically our business owners, because like we've talked about, Save Our Homes has all of our residents capped at that 3%. With the CPI being at 9.1, I think that for us to try to turn the page, our residents understand we're trying to provide the same level of service while fighting inflation. I think that they understand that. And so I'm going to make a motion to move to approve a maximum millage rate that is 4.8610 and for fiscal year 22-23, and set the public hearing dates to be held Wednesday, September 7th, 2022 and Wednesday, September 21st of 2022, beginning at 5:30.
I'll second.
We have a motion, we have a second. Council comments.
I'll just comment that I think this entire council has always been very acutely aware of human capital. Not only the human capital in our city for our employees and our staff, but the human capital in our residents as well. And it's challenging to find the balance. We are, like Councilman Foley said, this is a hard time. There's no question. But this council, for last however many years, at least 5-6 years, has had significant tax rate increases, almost exclusively to try to improve the human capital role or part of our city staff year after year after year after year. In fact, last year, the city took almost an unprecedented step in providing wage increases in a non-negotiating year for a lot of our employees. So we are very acutely aware of human capital on both sides. And that's where it's very challenging for us to always try to find the balance. We're also aware of how challenging it is to fill positions. It's that way in the private sector, everywhere you go. Our business owners in the city talk about it all the time. All the other cities in Volusia County struggle with the same thing. Even some of the cities that provide the highest wages struggle to fill positions. A lot of our folks do work two jobs. That was brought up. I did that almost my entire career with the city. A lot of our residents work 2 jobs as well to live in the city. So all very valid points, very appreciative points. And I definitely think that that's something that weighs heavily on the mind of the elected body as well. So that's just my thoughts.
Go ahead.
So year in and year out, when we have looked at our budget, I got irritated a few minutes ago, and Councilman Bastian is a friend. I consider him an absolute friend, and the mayor. But you've just seen, what? Yeah, you're a friend.
This ain't easy.
You're a friend. You've just seen what it's like when you got passionate people up here, and we're all trying to do the right thing. I did take exception with the suggestion that I'm, trying to handcuff or hurt our body. You go back every single year that we have discussed our budget, my comments are very consistent. First and foremost, I want to take care of our people that we have. I've been very clear on the record year in and year out for that. I am not interested in adding more services. I've also been clear on that. So I took exception to that. And when other motions were made that is now going to cost, year in and year out, we keep saying, $30, $40. Well, it's half of a water bill to some families. $30, $40, nothing to write home about. I'm a paycheck to paycheck guy, just like many of y'all are. I feel it. Month in and month out, I feel it. So, when other motions were made that doubled the amount that I put forth, I didn't make any comments. I let my no be no. So, with that said, you guys know my position and where I'm at.
Other comments? Reed, I appreciate you making a motion which happens to land right on where the CPI is right now. And albeit we're not buying groceries, we're being paid by people who are filling their own grocery baskets. And this is consistent with everything else that everybody else is paying, which is one of the reasons why I'm going to support it. But any other comments?
So, from my understanding,
Good start point.
if we,
It is a starting point.
yeah, if we can't come to a vote tonight, it automatically reverts to rollback, correct? Correct? Can somebody?
I think the attorney would need to answer that.
Yeah, and the finance director is also shaking his head. I believe that's the law. If we don't vote, we get appointed rollback. That would be, in my opinion, very irresponsible of us to do that.
I don't think we're in any danger of that. I have confidence that this group is going to.
Well, I know, but I'm saying
I appreciate that.
we can't go there.
Well, we're not going to go there because I'm not going to drop this until we're
no,
done.
I understand, but I apologize for getting upset, but I don't really apologize for my words because I feel that we're doing our employees a disservice if we can't.
I appreciate
They're
your
up
passion.
here begging and fighting for their, for their lives, basically, financially, and we are. I mean, I hear you. We are lagging behind in areas and certain cities and what others have done. And so we have to come up with something here tonight And so I get it, 9.1 is the consumer price index, and it's never pleasant doing these things, but you know, the bottom line, I don't see anybody moving out because we haven't, I mean, there are people wanting to move here. I get it. We kind of have to balance that. It's going to affect the business community. It's going to affect the residential community. And so we have to start somewhere. And like I said, I think it's a little low. And I've you know, asked for a couple other ones that were higher. But we do have to have a starting point tonight, and hopefully we can come to it with a vote.
And it is.
And I just want to make a notation, Drew, that the concept and the numbers you're talking about is not 100% employee related. So you have to keep that in mind. It's a large part of it, but you're drawing a conclusion.
Two-thirds-ish, yeah.
Right, 2/3. And you're drawing a conclusion and an assumption that somehow this decision hurts our employees, and I don't agree with you on that.
Okay.
I think there are
I
a lot
can
of
respect
ways
that.
for our
I mean,
senior
right.
staff and our management team to work the budget, find places where we can be more efficient with the taxpayer dollars and still take care of our employees in our city and our residents at the same time.
Okay, well, can I just say, I think it takes away some flexibility that staff would have
Well, yeah,
to
I
do
mean,
that.
you could raise the millage to 6.
Well, no,
Add a ton of
yeah,
flexibility.
yeah.
Every
I mean,
dollar
I- yeah.
if you want to talk flexibility, correct. For every dollar you add,
Yeah,
you add
we would
flexibility
have
for a dollar
more
you.
flexibility
For sure.
to, yeah.
And you have to have the flexibility on the other side of that equation too for the residents and the business owners. To
I get you.
continue to
I get
afford
it.
Let's wrap this up. Any other comments?
I forgot what my last one was.
We are still looking at cutting $252,970 with this, and I'm confident that you can. Wayne, you and I have already talked about ways that we can do that. So, I mean, and I know if you and I have had those conversations, then you can repeat that 5 times over. And I appreciate the fact that all 5 of us are very passionate from our positions because it means we care. You know, and I'm good with that. We have a motion on the floor. Call the roll.
Councilmember Foley?
Yes.
Councilmember Tremont?
No.
Councilmember Bastian?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Stiltner?
Yes.
Mayor Burnett?
Yes, 4-1. Just to reiterate, we have set the max millage rate at 4.8610 with the public hearing dates on September 7th and September 21st at 5:30 p.m. And I'm just going to add the comment, it's been said many times over, that Wayne and the finance staff know they're not done. They're just beginning. Thank you for that. Brings us to the next item. No. It's just that item. Just because you were
I
on,
think we're, yeah.
just because you're on page 954 of the agenda packet of 954 doesn't mean we're done. Additional items, city attorney report.
Nothing further.
Excellent report. City manager.
I don't have anything additional.
Excellent report. With that, thank you very much, everybody. Have a good night.
Okay.